Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my ridiculously entitled neighbor built a $2 million mansion on my vacant property for profit. He thought that he owns my property because I was away. I came back and taught him a lesson. Here is what happened. So my father was one of those guys who was really big on buying and selling property. Not real estate exactly, just empty land, and then the buyers would build various things on it. Both commercial and residential areas, and when he died everything got left to me. That included one plot of land in a very wealthy commercial area. I did not follow in my dad's footsteps and didn't know anything about that kind of business. What I did know was that I had a good job and I did not really need extra money from a sale or a huge plot of land for myself. If my tone is not a clear giveaway, I never had a good relationship with my father, so the fact that I got left anything was a surprise. I did not like how in this line of work so many people seem to get hurt or screwed over. It took me a while, but I figured out what I could do with that plot of land that would make me feel good about it. There was an issue in my area with too many orphaned children and the homes for them being overcrowded. I was gonna build a home on the land and then give it to that organization. Giving them the land alone would not help much, so I called and searched around for people that would volunteer time or supplies in order to build the place. That kind of thing takes a lot of time, and that meant I was away from the property and letting it sit for far too long. By the time I had most things settled and went to see the land again, there was already a house on it. Well, house might be the wrong word for what it was. The place looked like a mini mansion and I had no clue how it happened. I went to the town to try and find out from the public record information and saw that it was being claimed to be owned by the guy who lived in the other mini mansion right next door. I went to go and speak to him. I could tell when he opened his door that he had the same look to him as my father. That look that said, "Leave me alone unless I'm gonna make money from the conversation." Neighbor, what do you want from me? Me, hey, I'm OP. I owned the property next door and couldn't help but notice that you built a house there. Neighbor, the lot was empty for a long time. Nobody was using it and it could have been making somebody money. So now I can sell it. Me, it was not your land to build on. Neighbor, look kid, I'm a lawyer and from your clothes I can tell that you don't have a name in this city. It was abandoned land, so I took it in order to preserve the neighborhood. Now get the hell off my property. Friendly guy I was dealing with. He was right, I didn't have some big name or fancy law degree like him. I knew that what he did was illegal though, and I spent the next week contacting lawyers to find one that was willing to go up against him for stealing my property. Many refused because they didn't want to be on the opposite side as him. Finally, I found a group of lawyers willing to help me that I could afford. It took time until the paperwork went through and we were actually able to get into a courtroom with a judge to argue the case. The neighbor was telling a different story than the one he told me at his front door. He said that he owned the property and before my father died he had purchased the land. He showed fake evidence of a check trying to prove that he paid for it. I got everything from my father, including his bank account, which showed there was no check deposit. I demanded to see a bank statement that the check cleared and that he couldn't provide one. He did not try and claim the land was abandoned again, which I learned from my lawyers was never gonna work anyway. With his only plan falling apart, my lawyers started to ask him questions. What I was trying to do was not hidden and people knew what my overall goal was for that property. After enough pushing, they finally got him to admit his feeling about an orphanage being built. Not saying it was why he did it, but claiming that it would ruin the area and drive prices down. That basically nobody wanted to hear the noise a house full of kids would bring. He was smart with his wording to make sure he didn't flat out say that that was the reason. I could see why he was considered a good lawyer. The judge was more interested in the fact that he lied and tried to manufacture evidence in his favor. Apparently, a lawyer lying to a judge is a little different than a regular person. They can get fined or put in jail depending on how serious it was. A lawyer could lose his license and that was exactly what happened to him. From what I heard, all of his past cases needed to be gone through again to see if he lied or tried to fake something for his clients. It was a bigger mess than I would have expected. Hell, I just wanted him to return the property to me. He was in a world of trouble, but the issue still remained that there was a house he owned on land that I owned, putting us kind of in a stalemate where neither one of us could do anything with it. What some people don't know is that even though the land he built on was mine, he still was the owner of said house. It can get complicated and even my lawyers had a hard time trying to explain things to me. I got my revenge though, because in order to clean up his mess and image, he needed to do a lot of work. One thing that was recommended of him was donating to charity. They could not make him give up the house, but the way he was advised gave him a strong push to do so. He signed the deed to the house over to the charity organization, and then I signed them over the deed to the land. The neighbor got to keep his house, so now he is forced not only to have a home full of kids next door to him, but them living in a $2 million house that he planned on selling and making a profit for. It was incredible because I got to see inside the house after the charity got it and let me walk through it. It turns out that the neighbor went all out and had an indoor pool and a small movie theater. These kids were gonna have a good home to live in until they could find another permanent home. The way this guy reminded me of my father, it felt like I was getting some kind of karmic revenge. That I got to not only do something my dad would have hated, but find a guy with the same ideals as him. All I know is that I hope the kids play nice and loud so the neighbor will never forget what a colossal ass he was to try and steal the land away from homeless kids. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. And the next one is a petty revenge story. Many years ago, my former partner's sister, her kids and her redneck lug of a husband came to stay with us. The husband was retired military, a big fat lug of a guy who grunted like some kind of gorilla, super macho and obnoxious. He would take every opportunity to get his point across that he was a real man and us gay guys were not. My partner made a nice breakfast for the whole group one morning and then set up a tub in the sink so everyone could quickly wash their own dishes. We have no dishwasher. When the brother-in-law was finished eating, he carried his plate into the kitchen, tossed it onto the counter and sneered, "I ain't washing my own dish," and then walked out. A few minutes later, he went to take a shower while everyone else, except me, went outside. It was an old apartment with bad plumbing, so while he was in the shower, I stood in the kitchen and turned the hot and cold water on and off throughout his entire shower. I could hear him in there yelping like a little girl as he alternately got hit by scalding hot and then freezing water. When he finished and came out of the bathroom, he said, "Whoa, that shower temperature of yours is really crazy." I just smiled and said, "Oh yeah, sometimes it's like that." And the next one is another petty revenge story because I just cannot get enough of this. Yesterday I was running to the grocery store to pick up an item from the deli counter that I needed to make dinner. The line was long, so I waited for about 10 minutes. A woman and her husband saw the line, decided they didn't want to wait to put in their veggie tray order for the weekend, 5 days away, and jumped in front of me right as it was my turn. I protested, politely saying, "I'm sorry, but I was actually next." They looked at me and turned back to the counter and started their order. I don't think the worker hurt me, but they certainly did. It really upset me. Why didn't I stick up for myself better? Well, my time is valuable too. Why didn't I see this coming and prevent it? Well, I was really stewing on it. In fact, I made a promise to myself to not let people treat me with disrespect and not do anything about it. I don't know why people look at me and know I won't say or do anything. So about an hour later, it dawned on me. I stood next to them while they placed their order for a vegetable tray. I heard their name, phone number, and when they planned to pick it up. I love vegetables, so this Saturday I'm going to arrive an hour before their scheduled pickup time and get myself a carefully curated veggie tray. I will still pay for it since it's not prepaid, so no crime committed. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. A few years back I worked on a relief crew on a drilling rig. The rig ran 24 hours a day with 3 shifts. Crews worked 6 days and then 2 days off, and my crew would replace a working crew so they could have their 2 days off, so we worked mornings 2 days, then afternoons and then nights. It was common to find someone to take a shift if you wanted an extra day off, but the replacement had to have the same abilities. A crew had a driller, derrick hand, motorman, chain hand and floor hand. People started as floor hand, and as they learned, they would work their way up with more responsibility and more pay. Sometimes when someone changed companies, they might take a lower position, so it was common to have someone with derrick hand capabilities working motor or chain. In September, my wife asked about the chances of getting off for Christmas. I checked the calendar and my days off fell on December 24th and 25th. Done deal, I have it scheduled off, and then I decided to sweeten the pot. I found a guy who would work December 23rd and 22nd for me. Also found one who would work the 26th and 27th. I took this to my driller who agreed they could work for me. With my 6 days off, I could drive 400 miles to visit my family. Things look pretty sweet. Too sweet. The other guys on my crew were in the same position, so they all tried to find replacements, and 2 were successful. Unfortunately, the driller only had 3 other guys on the rig who could work for him, and none of them wanted to help. He got mad and said since he couldn't get the time off, none of us could have it off. I reminded him that he had already approved my time, and he said that was cancelled, and if I didn't work on December 23rd, then I was a run-off MF. Meaning fired. I told him fine, I will work the 23rd, but that will be my last day of work. Consider this my 3-month notice. At work, nothing much was said for the next few weeks. Outside of work, I was networking and found another job I could start the first week of January. All was set, and at the end of my shift on the 23rd, I emptied my work locker and said my goodbyes. The driller barely acknowledged me, went home and drove to see family the next day. I spent a relaxing week there and then came back to start my new job. About the end of January, I went to a friend's birthday party, and there I saw one of my old crew members. He asked me when I was going back to work. The driller thought I was just sulking around and would come crawling back soon. He never hired a replacement, and they'd been working short-handed for over a month. I said he better hire somebody, I was not playing games, and when I said I quit, I meant it. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So, was I an a-hole to my wife? I, 33 male, share 1 child, 6 female, with my wife, 36 female. She has another daughter, 13 female, that lives with us full-time, and we also got custody of our niece, which is 15 female. The teens are each other's best friends, they share a large bedroom, which was done at their request. The dynamic here is pretty much mom and youngest against the teens, with me being the referee between everyone. My wife has taught the youngest she can blame others for her actions to avoid consequences. She just says the word, one of the teens will get punished without question. There's no doubt, she's my wife's favorite. I love her, but she's becoming nothing more than an entitled brat. As just a mere example, my wife and I had an appointment we both needed to attend. When we came back, it was apparent the pool had been used. They are not allowed to swim while we are not home, as the youngest divulged, "Mommy, I was in my room coloring, I never went swimming." The teens said that wasn't true, she had gone swimming as well. Only the teens were punished though, and my wife refused to give the youngest any type of consequence. I later found her wet swimming suit hidden in the garage. Then my wife and I argued, and I felt strongly that she needed to not only be punished for swimming, but also for lying. After a relentless disagreement, I was silenced as she gave the youngest a very minimal consequence. The lying, the blaming, and favoritism ultimately caused the teens to act out understandably. Most of their consequences are done by giving more chores, especially the chores the 6-year-old has. Or as recently, they were removed from music lessons as a consequence. I believe they are so frustrated they don't even care when they verbally attack their mom after her unfair treatment towards them. After all, they already get blamed and punished for things they don't even do. From my perspective, lashing out gives them a release. We've had countless tiring arguments, she'd either not see her faults or we would agree to this and that. But it was never actually done. I decided to write her a performance review as a stay-at-home mom. Her areas in need of improvement, well, it was a lot, but I touched on how she needs to listen better, stop being biased, be fair in all her decisions, stop making rash decisions without taking all 3 kids into consideration. I recommended her to give each child the same amount of one-on-one alone time to speak or just be with one another, so it would not be an entirely slap to her face. I gave her accolades on her strong points for other areas aside from parenting. I guess I felt this would work best because I could organize my thoughts on paper without her interjecting, however it quickly backfired in my face. She was quiet the first hour after I handed it to her, then she completely exploded on me, said that if we are going to do this type of crap she will get a private bank account and take half my paycheck every week. She further said the review was abusive and a manipulative sexist move. And here, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I would say from OP's perspective this whole performance review is absolutely unacceptable and stupid, but then again, I would also say that the way the wife handles parenting is far from optimal. She is clearly doing a lot of things wrong here, and it seems like one of the kids is quickly turning into an entitled brat. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments. The first comment said, "Everyone sucks here. The concerns you have are legitimate and it needs an urgent solution, but the way you went about it is really unhealthy. The parenting of your children is not a project, you're not her boss, you are her husband and the father of her kid. Giving her a performance review comes across as really condescending and, as she said, manipulative. Comment number 2, are you her employer? Because employers give performance reviews. Partners don't give performance reviews. Your family, including yourself, needs therapy, a lot of therapy. You are clearly the a-hole. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here, she should be listening better, but seriously? A performance review? What kind of reaction did you expect? You are treating her like a temporary worker, not as your partner. That was unbelievably condescending. You seem to have a you versus me mentality instead of us versus the problem. You all need to find a way to communicate better in a non-adversarial way. Time to get into couples counseling and talk about this like adults. Comment number 4, I was ready to call you an a-hole, but I cannot. I think you acted in desperation because you see your wife favoring the 6-year-old at the expense of the teens. You have the additional fear of the 6-year-old turning into a manipulative brat due to your wife's actions. But did it have to be a performance review? Couldn't you just have written her a heartfelt letter? You've got bigger problems than a pissed off wife. And by the way guys, I would say even a letter is not really the right thing here. I don't understand why people just don't communicate normally these days. Why do you need to write a letter or something? I really don't get it. Anyway, you've got 3 kids who all need a stable home and to be treated fairly and equally. Also, the teens need to be heard. Somehow you've got to convince your wife family therapy is in order. I'm going with NTA, good luck. And the next one is titled HOA Compliance. I hate my HOA. The only reason I live here is because the house was dirt cheap at the end of 2010. For the most part I haven't had a lot of complaints, but during the lockdown I decided I wanted to give my yard some much needed TLC. It started with putting a gazebo in my backyard. I secured all the permissions I was told I needed and completed the work. Not 2 weeks after completion, I received a letter stating it was out of compliance. After weeks of arguing, I had to literally pick up my 3,000-pound redwood gazebo and move it 3 more feet from the wall. Now I get letters complaining about the vegetation in my front yard. I get it, it's been neglected for a while. I am doing my best to comply, but the trash guy only comes once a week, so I cannot throw away much yard waste at a time. Cue more angry letters and enter the malicious compliance. I decided that I'm going to remove my tree and replace it. I also want to just remove 5 plants. One of them is clearly dead by now. Their paperwork specifically says that I have to submit 1 item per design change request. So I submitted 7 different requests, 1 for each plant, 1 for tree removal and 1 for tree installation. Now they are sending me generic copy-paste replies saying I can change the yard. None of them specifying what design change was approved. I just keep replying to all of them asking for clarification. The last one I got said it was for the tree removal and planting of a new tree, but it didn't include the original letter or even a reference number. So I just replied back that I would like the specific letter included in the email so I can have an approval paper trail. They burned me bad with the gazebo incident. I won't get burned again, and I'm having a grand time wasting as much of their time as possible. I smile every time I reply to an email asking for specific information. Edit: since many of you are saying I should run for the board, here is why I won't. I have a full-time job that requires at least 2 weeks of travel each month. I have a teenage daughter that I want to spend as much time with as possible before she moves out. We go to a BJJ gym 4 to 5 nights a week. I also have a foreign exchange student living with me that wants to see America. My wife is a principal and I absolutely hate the HOA. So joining that team and dealing with others' hatred for it is most definitely not what I want to do with my free time. I will play their games maliciously. And yes, I want to move, but I don't know if you realized this or not. Housing prices are insane. I am staying put for now. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.